Quinoa as a protein source for Nutritional Controversies 2018. So what is it? Quinoa is a tall crop plant often mistaken as a weed that is cultivated mainly in Peru, Bolivia, and Chile, mainly in the Andes Mountains. A little fun fact there is quinoa plants are deer resistant, even the young leaves on the plant are edible. So there's a waxy substance around the seeds and leaves that deterred deer. And a little bit about the history. So it was first cultivated and used by pre-Columbian civilizations before being replaced by the Spanish after their arrival as early as 5000 BCE. Only in the recent 50 years has quinoa's popularity really taken off due to the complex growing area. Tractors and other equipment haven't been able to reach the growing fields, so accessibility and availability was low. But by 2005, planting and harvesting quinoa was easy and information on the seed was available, so that's really when it started to take off as a superfood. Quinoa only has 3 varieties, red, black, and white. Mixes and other combinations like tricolor, flakes, ancient grain, and addition of other grains or other food items like chickpeas or mushrooms have been added in for your convenience. On to some research. It's in the grain food group, and that's a little cross-sectional view of the quinoa grain. So its nutritional content is carbohydrate factor 4, fat factor 9, protein factor 4, and nitrogen to protein conversion factor 6.25. Those are some graphs on the macronutrient distribution and the fat distribution inside. So amino acids, the ones that are highlighted in yellow are the highest content, and on the right are the most notable high quantities of nutrient and minerals. So leucine, lysine, arginine, aspartic acid, glutamic acid, glycine, and proline are among the highest in the amino acids. On to the benefits. So quinoa is a complete protein that contains all 9 essential amino acids necessary for bodily function and repair. Total fiber content for quinoa was 11.9, among the highest in the grain group besides barley and rye. Manganese is highly present in quinoa, which is important to aid the body in antioxidant function, bone development, metabolism, and wound healing. Kidney stones can also be prevented by eating quinoa due to its potassium management qualities. On to the cost. So it's pretty easy to guess that the cost of an international grain won't be the cheapest, but it's economically sustainable for customers. It's about 75.5 grams per dollar, or 0.013 per gram. And there's a huge grain yield, 4-1, and the grain size was 1-1. And so after the cost of travel, it would be 40 grams per dollar, or 0.025 per gram. On to servings. So what does the serving size of quinoa look like? There's some visuals. A cup of quinoa is about 180 to 220 calories, so it's about the size of a tennis ball. And many people like to pair quinoa with a good salad or let it stand alone like a rice. The RDA is met for both sedentary maintenance and muscle growth at 61.67 grams for your RDA there, and then 123.33 grams for your muscle growth. And that's based on a cup of cooked quinoa and then 2 cups of cooked quinoa, which is your serving sizes. On to the science. So what scientific research is there about quinoa? Overall, the first study was testing mainly for the composition and quality of quinoa. The results showed that quinoa pulled ahead in every test performed compared to casein. The only further research that would really be needed is a human test instead of the rats, because they used 10 rats for each test, and there were 4. The goal of the second study was to see which gained most weight and protein quality. Results showed that quinoa showed the most weight gain and that it was identical to casein mostly rather than wheat in quality. Yet again, it needs to be performed on humans rather than rats to get a good indication of the full effect of quinoa. Onto the environment. So how great is quinoa for the environment? The different impacts. So quinoa is particular where it grows. So in order to have the best yield, the soil has to be in the natural manure that's produced by the animals in the region. And since the soil has been modified to compensate for the loss of the natural fertilizer, these high altitudes are experiencing erosion, even after these 50 years since it's really taken off. Also, warmer temperatures have increased the bugs, and so farmers have had to use more insecticides and other chemicals to kill off not only those bad bugs, but those good bugs that are good for the plants. And also, bees specifically have been affected by these chemicals, causing a local bee colony to collapse where quinoa is mostly grown in areas in Peru and those Andes Mountains. So food miles, it's about 4,000 miles from Peru to Wyoming, so naturally it doesn't grow here. Water is about 22.58. That's enough water to produce 1 cup of quinoa. And the greenhouse gas emissions are about 466 grams of CO2 per kilogram of quinoa, and that's the production of quinoa is sustainable for greenhouse gases as a result. And the land required is about 12.5 grams per square foot. So what's there to think about? So one of the problems in the Andes that they're facing is that the price of quinoa has increased, and this has negatively impacted the local people in the Andes because they can't afford this local food staple anymore since it's grown higher in price. And the most people actually hurt were the farmers and families. And the introduction of the tractor. So it might seem like a positive thing, but the homeland of the quinoa has been hurt pretty bad due to tractors interrupting the natural llama and other animals grazing the lands. The natural structure and nutrient content of the soil has been crushed. Problems arising from the destruction of the soil and llama symbiosis has been a severe crop failure and as well as erosion again. All right, so overall, quinoa is a great source of protein, meeting all RDAs with a serving. Cost per gram isn't much, and is affordable when a 2-pound bag of quinoa averages around $12. Very cost-friendly, but the only problem is the environmental toll on the Andes Mountains where most quinoa is grown. As it stands, quinoa is relatively good environmentally, but could use some work. So overall, it's about a 7/10 for the environment.